And a City News exclusive tonight raises serious questions about whether coroners' inquests into police-involved shootings ever lead to change. And the stark answer is no. In just a minute, I'll share with you details of just what happened inside coroner's court today in the inquest into the police shooting of Andrew Loku almost exactly 2 years ago. But first, a year-long research project reveals some startling details about years of provincial inaction.
All deaths are a tragedy. Preventable deaths are an enormous tragedy, and that's what's frustrating about this. Groundhog Day was a good movie. It's not very good in terms of the development of public policy. We shouldn't be having this constant discussion over and over.
Osgoode Hall law professor Alan Young leads the Innocence Project. He and his small team have spent the last year investigating 65 cases of police-involved shootings of those in mental distress. They pored over all of the recommendations from 39 inquests across Ontario.
All of these inquests, I believe approximately 30 of them have pertinent recommendations about training, the use of force, de-escalation, and mentally ill populations. And none of these recommendations have been implemented nor commented on by the government.
You're telling me that of hundreds of recommendations that were made since the late 1970s, not one of those recommendations has been implemented by the government?
No.
The research was inspired by this. December 2013, Michael McIsaac running naked down the street in the midst, his family says, of a grand mal seizure, shot dead by Durham police. No officer has ever been charged. An inquest into his death begins next month, but his sister Joanne holds out little hope that any recommendations will bring about change.
None of them have been implemented. None of them. So they can continue to, I'm going to assume this process is $1.5 million taxpayers' dollars. They're going to continue to do these and ignore all the findings.
The Innocence Project plans to take the province of Ontario to court to force changes to the Police Services Act to ensure use of force training is mandated on constitutional grounds.
The issue of training the police is so significant that it's actually elevated to a principle of fundamental justice that the Charter protects.
There's 65 different police forces in Ontario, and all of them do something different. There's nothing uniform. There's no standardization. The training that they get at the Ontario Police College is very small. They don't actually have a lot of mental illness training or a lot of de-escalation training. They have a lot of training when it comes to their firearms.
So we took these details from the Innocence Project to Queen's Park to ask the minister responsible why there is not mandated changes to the Police Services Act to make sure that de-escalation training is part of that act.
This is under review at this particular time, but we will be launching actually our strategy for a safer Ontario very shortly, introducing legislation in the fall, and I look forward for engaging more with all of you. The challenge that police are facing today is different than years ago, and as we are modernizing and adapting the Police Services Act, it gives us the opportunity to work in partnership with all organizations to ensure a safer Ontario.
So as you heard, the minister claims that there will be changes coming in the fall. That's also when the Innocence Project plans to go to Queen's Park and present their findings. They say they will give them a deadline to make these changes to the Police Services Act. If they don't, they'll be going to court.